Hey Hodies, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing a review of the Prada Reveal Foundation. When I do a review, I like to touch base as to why I'm reviewing a thing. Did I buy it for a review? Was it something that interested me personally? So this foundation was actually a gift to me. My friend Kackie of Kackie Reviews Beauty here on YouTube. She really loves this foundation and she gifted this to me for my birthday. We'll talk more about some of the struggles about getting this for my birthday later on. I wanted to do this review simply because I know that Sephora is going to be launching this foundation, at least in the United States. So you will be able to now buy it at Sephora instead of through the Prada website and also through Selfridges, which are the two places that I know that you can buy it. I think you could also buy it through Harrods. So there's a couple of places that you could buy it. And I do believe that the whole line is coming to Sephora. But when I was looking on the website, right now I only saw the foundation as one of the listings from Prada Beauty besides the Prada fragrances that Sephora has been carrying for a while. I used to do my reviews a little bit differently, so this is more just a conversation for those of you who have seen my old foundation reviews. I'm trying to streamline things a little bit, so which shouldn't be as long as my old reviews used to be. You will still get the same things that you got out of the last one, just like in a little better presentation. So I think the first thing we should do, because we're talking about this foundation, is read what Prada says about this foundation from their website. Prada Reveal's Skin Optimizing Foundation refines the skin in 3 dimensions, including tone, luminosity, and texture, to reveal soft filtered skin in real life. The foundation has a breathable, soft matte finish and up to 24 hours of wear. This long-lasting, medium buildable coverage foundation is infused with the IRL microfilter TM technology. This technology consists of a molecule that microcrystallizes onto the skin. It is transfer resistant, formulated with vitamin E, niacinamide, lactobacillus extract complex, and the formula improves skin tone, enhances skin's natural radiance and hydration, and refined skin texture with broad spectrum SPF 17 sunscreen. Here's the foundation. Before we get into the review, I like to look at ingredients. I am not here to vilify ingredients. I just like to look at them. You know, you're putting foundation on your face, so I think you should take that into consideration. But I'm by no means here telling you what ingredients are good or bad. I can't. So I like to just highlight ingredients that maybe I've never heard of before. This foundation actually has a couple of ingredients that I would like to talk about. So let's talk about the SPF first. So the sunscreen in this foundation is I'll just post it on the screen because it is I've never seen this word and I'm trying to sound it out right now and I simply can't. I've never heard of this sunscreen, but it is a chemical sunscreen. I went to Paula's Choice website to look up what this ingredient is, or just a little bit more about it. Also known as phenylbenzimidol sulfonic acid. Ensilzol is a water-soluble sunscreen ingredient that works in the UVB range, offering no UVA protection. For this reason, this should always be prepared with 1 or more UVA screening sunscreen actives in any SPF rated product labeled broad spectrum. Aesthetically, this ingredient feels lighter and less oily than most synthetic sunscreen actives, so it is sometimes chosen when the goal is a very lightweight texture. Although the mineral actives, titanium dioxide and zinc oxide, can also feel surprisingly light on the skin. Based on that, I do think this is like a chemical sunscreen, because if it was a mineral sunscreen, I don't think it would have compared it to mineral sunscreen. And what I will tell you is that I didn't even know this had SPF in it, even though it says it on the container. It says it. I didn't know this had SPF in it until I was looking up the ingredients, because it doesn't smell of SPF, like, you know, that traditional sunscreen smell, which makes sense because it's not, you know, mineral sunscreen, because I find that chemical sunscreens don't have that SPF scent. I will say that this formula has a lot of fragrance ingredients in it, so if you tend to be very sensitive to fragrance ingredients, this might be a pass for you. But I always recommend, if you are interested in something and if you are able to get a sample of it when your skin is sensitive, to try a patch on your skin. Sometimes different formulas do different things, and sometimes you can wear something that you can't normally wear. You know, it's just one of those things. So I always recommend getting a sample. So that's not me telling you flat out not to buy it, but just buyer beware. If you happen to be more sensitive to fragrance, this might be one to avoid. It has glycerin, which is we love glycerin. Also, it has niacinamide. I know that some people are sensitive to niacinamide, so just know that it's in there, but it is one of the main selling points of this foundation. I just want to reiterate, as I always do when I talk about ingredients in a foundation, foundations aren't skincare. Foundations aren't SPF, so you should never be relying solely on your foundation for either of those things. I mean, it's cool sometimes that those have those ingredients in them, but I really do hate that makeup brands try to use that as a selling point. If these ingredients are in to make your formula more effective on performance-wise on my skin, then that's fine. But whenever we're talking about kind of actives or things that are supposed to be hydrating or whatever, it's fine, but it's also like, I don't need that as a selling point. Like, I don't care that it has it in, but like the brand is selling it. It's like, this has niacinamide in it. And it's like, okay, and what does that have to do with me? I just wanted to note that dimethicone is the first ingredient, followed by water. So I know some people don't really care for silicone-y feeling foundations. I will say by touch, I wouldn't call this like silicone-y feeling, but it does have silicones in it. So if you try to avoid silicones, just that there are silicones in it, so you might not want to buy it. If it's more about a feeling than it is about the actual ingredient, then I don't feel like it feels super silicone-y. Like, I definitely have used foundations that have felt very silicone-y, and I don't feel that this one feels that way. So those are the only ingredients I wanted to talk about. I do feel like that SPF is just like new to me. I've never seen it as a sunscreen. And there was more on the Paula's Choice website. I just like took the basic information. Like, I'm not here to teach you everything about an ingredient. If you are a long time viewer of my channel, this would be the point where I would do my 4-day wear test. So I still did all that, and I have footage all of that, but it's gonna be overlaying on top of me as I discuss my experience with the foundation. My first impressions of this was that I thought it was okay. Like, the very first time I used it, and I've had this for about a month now actually in my possession. I will say that I didn't really care about it the first time I wore it. The second time I wore it, again, I was putting it on my face and I felt like, okay, I don't understand the hype about this foundation at all. And then that day, after I applied it about an hour into wear, I was like, okay, I'm seeing the vision here. I'm seeing what Prada is selling. It's like interesting because when you first put it on, I feel like there's like not really a lot of magic happening, but whenever you have it on your skin for a little bit, that's whenever I feel like it does its best work. Now, that's not to say that it's like mattifying the skin. It just like, and it's not like it doesn't look good when I first apply it either. I think it does, but I think it looks really magical about like an hour into wear. So I'm not sure if like that's because of my oily skin that it makes it feel like it looks better. That's how I feel about it, that the magic really starts about an hour in. My favorite foundation is the Sephora Dewdrop foundation. What I love about that foundation is that I feel like it's light coverage, and then it looks like I have a filter on my face as opposed to having some coverage. Now, I do believe that the Prada's claim of this being a medium coverage foundation are completely accurate. It's a little more coverage than I'm typically looking for, but I don't feel like it's an unnatural looking medium coverage. I feel like it blends into the skin really, really seamlessly. I mean, obviously that has to do with the match of mine being a pretty good match for me, but I also feel like there's no clear marker where I'm not wearing foundation to where I am wearing foundation. So it's not like an unnatural looking medium coverage finish. Let me talk a little bit about my experience applying it all 3 ways. I found that this worked really well with a brush, a sponge, and my hands. And I also, when I used my hands, I felt like it didn't feel gross in the hands, because sometimes when I apply foundation with my fingers, I go, did that feel like it was worth applying it with my fingers? Now, there are obviously some makeup wearers who like only apply foundation with their fingers, and that's not me trying to like vilify it. It's just, I do feel as though like foundations that are meant to be applied with your fingers feel like they're meant to be applied with your fingers, meaning like when you use your fingers, it doesn't like leave a ton of residue. There was certainly still some residue on my hands after I was done applying it with my fingers, but it wasn't like an excessive amount. I don't feel as though that applying it with my fingers added any additional benefit. So there are sometimes when I use a foundation and I use my fingers, I will find that it looks so much better on my skin because it was worked into the skin with the warmth of my fingers. I also find that foundations that have like SPFs in them, especially if the SPF is higher, like more of a part of the foundation, I find that those tend to be like a lot thicker on the hands and like leave a lot more residue. I didn't find that that was really the case for this. I really liked the way that this applied with a sponge. I'm not really someone who likes to apply my foundations with a sponge, but I do think that this was worthwhile applying with the sponge. And also, I think it was my favorite finish of all 3. I feel like the medium finish looked really, really good, and I feel like it became even more closely one with the skin when I was using the sponge. And it didn't take much more foundation than when I applied with my fingers to apply it with a sponge. You know, sponge soaks up a little bit of product, but both times I think I used 2 pumps for my full face. Then with the brush, it applies really beautifully with a brush. I have enjoyed it more with a dense foundation brush than something that has a little less bristles in it. But overall, I think ultimately it looks its best with a sponge. But I think that all 3 applications are a very respectable way to apply this foundation. Any way you want to do it, it will work for you. The only thing I would say is that with a brush application, I feel like I used the least amount, which is not always the case. Oftentimes, applying with my fingers will allow me to apply the least amount. However, I can get away with applying 1 pump a foundation to my full face. I just feel like the coverage is a lot lighter, which I like, which means that this foundation will probably get me a further way because I'm not really looking for a medium coverage. It is adaptable. Like, I think that you can get a light coverage. I would say that I probably, like, you can definitely like build it up a little bit, but I probably wouldn't want to build it up to a full coverage. But if you have redness on certain parts of your face and you want to layer it up a little bit in certain spots, I think that it will do that. But I don't think you're going to ever get like full coverage with this foundation on its own. I would say, like, if you're looking for full coverage, I would spot conceal with a concealer as opposed to like trying to build this up to do something full glam. I just don't think that this foundation is going to allow itself to do that very well. Let's talk about a couple of things. So this is refillable. It's $70. And then if you buy the refill, it is 55 US dollars. And so this is what the refill looks like. And Kackie did say when she was at my house and she was looking at it, the ingredients are on this packaging. Kackie said that that was not the case on hers. She did buy hers from Selfridges, which is a UK based company. I don't know if like the rules are different and maybe that's why the ingredients are on it here, because this was purchased through the Prada website. I actually feel a little bit of disappointment in this packaging. All of the weight in this packaging is in this cap and the weight of this itself, but this by itself is just a plastic tube. This is also like an acrylic. I don't care for that. I don't mind the refillable packaging, and this is glass. So the refill is glass, which is great in theory, right? Because like glass is much more recyclable than plastic. Couldn't you make both components glass? Yes, this will probably be better for travel for people who are looking to take this on the go, but I probably wouldn't take this foundation on the go. And then the cap is actually really beautiful. There has to be a weight in this plastic because this is like, it's pretty heavy. And then on the inside, it's like this beautiful green, but it does get a little bit messy. When I think of like it's a luxury foundation, and this is someone who doesn't like the Surat packaging so much that I've decanted it. I don't know that this is like really serving, but I feel like there are a lot of foundations at this $70 price point that aren't really serving packaging wise. So it's kind of just par for the course. I've tried a $125 foundation, which was in a glass jar, and I didn't really care for that packaging either. It wasn't bad. And I also just kind of like the dimensions of this. Like, this is wider than the circle. It's just a little bit, I don't know. It reminds me sort of the vibe of the Merit Signature Lip, except I think that the Merit Signature Lips feel more luxury in their packaging, but they kind of have that same thing where it's like the acrylic outside and then the bullet inside is like heavier. It's very top heavy, kind of like the West Atelier sticks. It's like just top heavy. It's just a little bit bizarre. Like, I don't know. I just feel like it would knock over easily if you were keeping it on your vanity. And I think like in a foundation drawer, it would fall to its side pretty quickly just because how top heavy it is. So this foundation has 33 shades. I am the shade LN5. So if you are a skin twin, it's LN5 is what I have been using. It's a really great match for me. I do feel like it is neutral. I don't think it like leans too yellow or too pink, but I don't know about obviously the warm shades or the cooler shades in this line, like how pigmented they are and how saturated those colors are. I will say, it's really confusing whenever you're looking at the shades on the Prada website, and then it's also confusing on the Sephora website. The Sephora website's a little more clear. It does look as though the refills are launching the same day as the foundation, so that's really great because there are people who have been using this for a bit now that maybe bought it from Selfridges or Harrods and had it shipped, or from the Prada website, and when they re-up, they can just get the refill. So I do appreciate that, because if you're going to make a refillable product, I do feel as though the refills should launch the same day. Not that everyone is going to buy a refill right away. I think that the refill comes with the pump. So if you just wanted to buy this, you could, although the only thing you would be missing is like a cap. I'm sure that it comes with a cap when you buy the refill. I don't know that for sure. I've not bought a refill. This would be also like really good size for a makeup artist kit too, but you probably wouldn't want it to be in glass if you were using it in a kit. You could do whatever you want with your makeup kit. Just, I'm thinking out loud. So the shades jump. It kind of starts with the lightest, but it doesn't. It starts with like a light medium shade and it goes lighter and then it goes darker. And then in the lineup, the deepest shade is like somewhere in the middle, and then it goes back to lighter and then it goes deeper again. So when I first looked at the range, I was like a little bit confused about how deep it goes. It's not like the most revolutionary shade range, but it does appear, and you know, granted, it's the website, so I don't know how deep it goes, but based on their imagery, it does appear to go pretty deep. But I feel like there's probably a lot in between from the lightest shade to the deepest shade that we're a lot missing. It does look like there wasn't a lot of like tan, medium, tan, deep like leaning into that. It's like there was like four really deep shades, and then it was just kind of like lighter shades. Speaking of shades, I do want to swatch this next to some of the other foundations that I have so that you can see it comparatively and so that I can see it. So I'm going to do some swatches and then I'll come back and we'll look at the back of my hand. And I'm going to take my jacket off because I have a feeling it's going to go further down my arm. All right, so I have the swatches on my hand, and it's a little bit jarring. Here's the Prada foundation in LN5. This is the Surratt Dewdrop foundation in 1.5. This is the Glossier foundation in Very Light 3. Oh no, I did the thing. This is the new About Face foundation in shade L1, which is light neutral. Then below that, that's the Prism Libre concealer in N95. Then below that, that's the Terracotta Le Tint from Guerlain in the shade OC. And then this is the Surratt Surreal Skin Foundation in 1.5. And then this is the Surratt Dewdrop Concealer in 2. So it is darker, but it's what I have on my face. I don't feel like it reads that dark when it's blended out, but it is really funny whenever you look at your foundations, whenever you take a look at them, it's like, how are these so different on the skin? If you are a similar skin tone to me, there's just, you know, a little bit of a reference for you. You might want to go lighter if you lean more into like this Glossier shade, but I don't feel like we have like a disconnect down my neck to my shoulders, or like even when I hold my hands up next to my face, because sometimes I'll wear a foundation and it's like, I put my hands up next to my face, I don't feel like it's like this jarring jump. So that's a little bit curious, isn't it? As far as the wear test went, it actually went very, very well. So when I put it on at the beginning of the day, again, I feel like it looks good, looks fine at the beginning of the day. And then in my 4-hour check-in, I'm looking a little bit oily, but like not the most oily I've ever looked. And then at the end of the day, I thought that it looked really, really good. I have oily skin, so my natural oils were peeking through, but it didn't feel like it was breaking up the foundation. It just looked like I had oily skin. It didn't look like I was wearing like a heavy makeup and then also oils breaking through, especially when things claim to be matte or soft matte and there is that like powder component to keep you matte. Sometimes I find that the powders break up and that's what looks really bad on my skin whenever it's like closer to the end of the day. And then I did do a retouch. I applied some of the Charlotte Tilbury powder on top at the end of the day, and I did apply that powder at the beginning of the day too. When I do my wear tests, I wear them as I would any foundation, and I do powder every time I wear foundation. So just know that I'm not trying foundations without powdering them. My oily skin would have it slip sliding all around my face. I also used primer in every one of my applications too. So that's just how I wear makeup. I did a little bit of a touch up and it took to the powder really well. It didn't make it look cakey when I was applying the powder, and it kind of just looked like I had refreshed my face. I now want to go through point by point what Prada's claims are and then talk about what I thought about them if I agreed. It refines skin in 3 dimensions, including tone, luminosity, and texture to reveal soft filtered skin in real life. I get a little bit of that filtering effect, but I have also got that filtering effect a lot stronger through other foundations. I don't feel like it's entirely coverage that makes this beautiful. I do feel like it does have some of like that soft blur effect. Not as much as I would look for in a foundation that is making that as its like kind of first claim to fame. It's good, but it's not like the best like soft filtering look. The Surratt Dewdrop foundation would be my best recommendation to you if you're looking for something like that. The Chantecaille Future Skin Gel foundation also gives you a little bit of that like light coverage, but a really nice like filtered effect. So those would be the 2 that I would say are better than this, and both of those are around the same price point as this foundation. So if you're looking for that, I would recommend those 2 over this foundation, but I do feel like this foundation does give you a little of that soft focus blur. Foundation has a breathable soft matte finish up to 24-hour wear. Well, I didn't wear it for 24 hours. I'm never going to wear a foundation for 24 hours. Who cares? I'm not doing that. I don't think you should. I don't think anyone should test those claims because I know the company's probably also likely not testing those claims. I do feel like the foundation feels really light on the skin, really breathable. Like I don't feel like my skin feels clogged even with the dimethicone in there, but my skin's not really sensitive to silicones or pores being clogged from formulas. That's not a problem I often have. So I'm speaking from like that privileged point. The soft matte finishes, I don't feel that it looks soft matte. Now, obviously today I have a lot of glowy products on top of it, but I don't think even before powdering at any point that I felt like the foundation was giving me a soft matte finish. I feel like it gave me a very realistic skin finish. Like I feel like it just looked like skin, which is really to its benefit. Like that's the most beautiful part of it. It just like becomes one with your skin so beautifully. But if you were looking for a soft matte foundation, I feel like this doesn't really lean into that very much. It might have some of those soft matte components, but I just feel like it looked like skin on me. It didn't lean into that soft matte. A recent foundation that I've tried that has a soft matte finish that I really like is the Terracotta Latente from Guerlain. I've not tried a lot of soft matte foundations. The last one I had was one that I tried 4 years ago, the NAR Soft Matte. I also really liked that one. And I would say both this and the NAR Soft Matte lean more into the matte. Like if it does have a matte finish, it's the softest matte finish. The long-lasting medium buildable coverage foundations infused with that IRL microfilter technology, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I already said that I think that it does have a medium buildable coverage. I do agree that it's long wearing. I feel like it held up on my oily skin throughout the day without retouching, and sometimes foundations will not last when my oils start breaking through. They claim that it is transfer resistant, and I do agree. Like I feel like I can touch my face and like, you know, foundation's not coming off of it. I do powder my face, so that also has something to do with it, but I even feel like if I weren't to powder my face, that this foundation, I would feel comfortable, like, you know, touching it. Not like rubbing my face, but like touching it and like not getting foundation everywhere. And then it's formulated with vitamin E, niacinamide, lactobacillus extract complex, which I don't know what that is. Improves skin tone, enhances natural radiance. As I said earlier, I think that any foundation claiming to make your skin better over time is a bit of a stretch, especially because if you think about when you apply your foundation, assuming that you have a skincare regimen, you've washed your face, you maybe have applied toner, you have maybe applied an active to your skin like vitamin C, and then you apply eye cream maybe, and then you apply a moisturizer, and then you apply an SPF. And so we're at this point 7 layers of stuff protecting your skin. And then if you apply a primer over that, that's like an 8th layer. How is that foundation going to penetrate all of the product that's already on my face to give it any kind of, what's it doing? And a lot of times people are wearing primers as a barrier so that their foundation doesn't really affect their skin. All makeup companies are on the wrong path when it comes to skincare in foundations. I understand it makes it sound good, right? It's like, oh man, that's a foundation that sounds like it's good for the skin. I think we need to let go of the idea that foundation is good for the skin because we're doing other things. We're using skincare to take care of our skin. The foundation is moot. It doesn't matter. You don't want that affects your skin negatively, but like no foundation is really going to do great things for your skin. Then it has the SPF 17 sunscreen. And as I said earlier, this sunscreen is only UVB, not UVA. I think that's what it said. So it doesn't offer UVA protection. So you should be wearing sunscreen under this as is. I know that most of us are adults and understand that SPF 17 is not going to be enough sunscreen, but I think it bears repeating whenever we're talking about sunscreen and sun protection that you're not going to get a full day's worth of sun protection from wearing this SPF. And also SPF needs to be reapplied, like I think every 80 minutes or so, like 1 hour to 80 minutes. So when you put this on in the morning, it's not even going to do anything. It's going to barely do anything because it's SPF 17. And then before I give my final thoughts, I do want to talk about like the hullabaloo that it was to get this. So Kackie bought me this foundation for my birthday, and we met up in Philadelphia, and she gifted me a foundation and it was the wrong shade. Obviously I'm speaking from Kackie's experience buying this. It wasn't my experience buying it. She bought mine through the Prada website, but when Kackie bought hers, she bought hers through Selfridges. I have recently been purchasing off of Selfridges, and I think that Selfridges is also a confusing website to purchase things from. It's like one of the most annoying online shopping experiences I think I've ever had shopping on Selfridges. More to come on that in future videos if you're interested. And I'm speaking as like shopping on Selfridges as an American, so that's also something to take into consideration when I say this. When I opened it and I was like, that's not the right shade, she looked at her email and it did not say the shade name next to it. She wanted to return it and they blamed her for buying the wrong shade. So then Kackie, while we were in Philadelphia across from each other, she purchased the correct shade through it, and she like had to quadruple check. And I even feel like it went wrong at one point because the Prada website is like very strangely set up. And as I said, the foundation shades are like not in order. And it does seem to be consistent on Sephora's website, the way it's laid out currently as I look at it before it launches on the Sephora website. It doesn't go in order from lightest to deepest. So you just be very careful when you are making the purchase. So when Kackie purchased it, 1 week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, 4 weeks went by, and it still wasn't at my house. It kind of got like stuck in shipping purgatory. Prada uses like the cheapest form of shipping when shipping from their website, which is a little bit disappointing. As someone who has purchased from luxury brands, a lot of times luxury brands will offer you like the best free shipping, meaning like it'll get there in 2 days, even though you haven't paid for shipping. I do believe that Prada Beauty does charge shipping. I don't know what the minimum threshold was, but whenever Kackie bought this, I think she did have to pay for shipping and handling, which is a little bit annoying, especially because you're paying for the shipping and handling, and then it's the cheapest shipping and handling. And then, so essentially I think, last I checked, my original Prada foundation, well, my second Prada foundation is somewhere in Ohio, and it just is stuck there, and I don't know if I'll ever get it. And it's interesting, to be fair to Prada, that I have had other packages get lost in that very same place in Ohio. And then I looked on Reddit, and Reddit was like, yeah, a lot of packages do end up going there to die. So I have no idea if I'll ever see that foundation. If I do, it'll be great to see, but I don't think I'm ever going to see it. So Kackie filed a credit card claim, and that is when Prada offered to send a replacement, and this one came pretty quickly. It's kind of like the same thing that a lot of people experience with Pat McGrath. If you're gonna buy this, I would buy it not through the Prada website. I would buy it at Selfridges, or I would buy it through Sephora, because Sephora's shipping is pretty good. And I also think I should reiterate, just make sure you're buying the right shade. It is weird, the layout of it. Let me do my final thoughts. I would not have bought this foundation myself. While I was interested in the Prada foundation, because I'm a little bit interested in every foundation, I'm not gonna lie. I wouldn't have purchased this because if you are new to my channel, I try to keep a relatively small collection for a content creator because I like to use what I have and I like to enjoy what I have. If I have excess, I find that I'm not enjoying it, then I overlook things that I really, really love in order to like make sure I'm using everything in rotation. It just wasn't on my radar as something that I wanted to maybe potentially invite into my makeup collection to replace one of the 4 foundations I already had. However, my experience has been really only positive with this foundation. I think it's a really, really good foundation. I do have to keep in mind that this was gifted to me. I'm trying to think of whether or not I would want to spend $70 on this foundation. I have spent more on foundations that I really enjoy. Again, the Surat Dewdrop foundation is my favorite foundation. It's $75 and you get less than an ounce, but I'm like willing to pay it because that's my favorite foundation. I think it's really, really good. In fact, I think it's one of the more impressive foundations I have tried within the last year, because I'm thinking about all the things I've tried within the last year. I tried a Lancome foundation that didn't work out for me. The Makeup by Mario foundation I really didn't like. The Gucci foundation I didn't really care for. Even the Sublimage Latent, which was good, it was like I didn't really care for it. I really like this. My final question to myself is, am I gonna kick something out of my makeup collection in order to keep this around? And I am. I have used the Prism Libre from Givenchy as a foundation because I don't really like it as a concealer under my eyes. A lot of other people who are in my age range really like this under the eye, and I think it's good, but I never had that moment with it that I feel like everyone else did. I thought it's like, it's good, but it's not the best, and I liked it much more as a foundation all over my face, but I much prefer this to this all over my face. I still think this is a really good product, and I think that if this works really, really well for you, you're gonna get a lot of value out of it, especially if you're using it as a concealer, because there's a butt ton of product in here. But for me, it's just never impressed me to the point where I've seen it impress other people. Like, there's just so many people who are like, this is like my new ride or die concealer, and it just never did that for me, and I would much rather use this up. The refill being $55, I think that's okay. Like, that's okay. It's like not another $70. I do like the idea of refillable products. I do, and I never want to claim that I know a lot about sustainability. There's a lot to know about it. I do appreciate that Prada did put their refill in glass containers, where someone like Surat, when they do refills, it comes in plastic, and we all kind of know that plastic really isn't recycled. At least the glass component feels like something could be recyclable. Now, whenever you buy the refill, I'm curious if it comes with a pump or if it's... I'm gonna pull up Sephora's website because I'm now talking about it. It does look like the refill comes with a pump. The pump probably wouldn't be recyclable. But I do appreciate the commitment to it. I just wish that the outside container did have, like, I don't know, I wish it was a little bit better. I don't really care for it. But I do like this enough that I am kicking out this. You're gonna have to hear what I said in my review to make the decision whether or not you think this is gonna be a good foundation for you. I recommend it to people who are willing to pay that much for a foundation, people who are looking for a medium coverage, long wearing foundation. Recommend it to people with oily skin, but just know that it's not gonna have like intense oil control. I don't think it was designed to do that. In fact, it never really looked matte on my skin. I'm wondering if you have drier skin, if it's gonna look soft matte. I would refer you to Kackie's review of this foundation when she originally was trying it out. She has much drier skin than I do, and I can't recall in my brain what she said. And there's obviously a lot of other content creators who have dry skin that probably have tried this foundation. I know they're launching on the website tomorrow. I hope that there will be bays inside stores for you to be able to look at the colors, because I do feel like this color range is a little bit perplexing. I think that getting a color match is probably the best way to go. Like, Kackie nailed it, and Kackie and I wear the same foundations, but it is weird how dark it looked whenever I swatched it compared to everything. That was a little bit strange. Like, I don't know how that happened. It's just not like an overwhelming, like, I love it. I think there are gonna be people who really, really love it, and maybe over time I might come to be like, let me just restate that, like, I really love this, or I might fall out of love with it. But as of right now, I think it's really good, and I think it's worthwhile for me to keep. But again, I think it can't be emphasized enough that this was like a personal gift to me. The brand did not gift it to me, and I wouldn't have bought it otherwise. So I think I have less stakes in my review than you as someone who would be purchasing this foundation. Bear that all in mind. I will have it linked down below if you do choose to buy. But let me wrap up this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you are new and you enjoyed today's video, I don't often go into like deep dive reviews that much. I do have another foundation review I'm working on, so stay tuned for that if you are interested in another deep dive review. Most of the time, my channel is focused on like loving my collection, trying to make sure that whenever I'm buying makeup for myself and not my makeup channel, that I'm making a good purchase. I try to build that habit for myself and help you build that habit. So if that sounds good to you, I'd love to have you subscribe. Make sure you like this video and share it with anyone you think might find it helpful to them, especially with this launch being tomorrow in Sephora. And I'm on patreon.com if you want to support me there. Patreon's just a way to make me doing this a little bit more feasible. On my Patreon, everyone at any level of patronage gets the same thing. So you get one additional video from me every month, and then I also do my podcast with Kackie over there, and we release those weekly. So you get kind of like 5 additional videos from me, but at least one just from myself. And I like to do like sneak peeks and talk about, you know, things over there that I don't normally talk about on my channel. I get a little bit more personal. I talk about the back end of YouTube if you're interested in that sort of thing. It's more like me focused, not that my channel's not focused on me, but you know, it's a little more personal. So check that out if you want to, but there's absolutely no need to join my Patreon. I appreciate that you here and you're commenting. That's like the best way to support me. Patreon's just like an additional way to support me, but thank you to all of my current patrons. You are the absolute best. And I did launch channel memberships. It's an alternative to Patreon. It's you're getting all of the exact same things on the channel memberships. So again, no matter what level you choose to support me at, everyone gets the same thing. I'm not doing tiered. It's too confusing. I don't have time to do additional content for people who pay more. It's just like, pay if you want, join if you want. But again, no pressure. With the channel memberships launching, it's like, I don't want anyone to be confused. It's like, if you're already on Patreon and you like being on Patreon, great, stay on Patreon. If you prefer to be on YouTube and pay through YouTube, then this is the option for you, because I know that some people don't like using Patreon. The content is the same on both. Anyway, I appreciate you all so much for watching. Remember to follow your hope and you will find me. I'll see you in a video very soon. Go forth, tits out. Bye-bye.